Have you ever wondered why you were born into this life? Why this family, this body, this time in history? Have you ever looked up at the stars and whispered, "Why me?" So many of us believe life is random, that we appeared here by chance. But deep down we sense that can't be the whole story. What if your life wasn't an accident at all? What if every breath, every joy, every challenge was the unfolding of countless hidden causes? Hello my friends, and welcome back to Son.Mindfulness. It's so good to have you here again. This is a space for reflection, calm, and awakening, where we look at timeless Buddhist wisdom through the lens of modern life. Today we're going to explore one of the most beautiful truths ever taught, that nothing in this world, not even you, happens by chance. Everything arises through conditions, and when you begin to see that, something inside you shifts forever. Maybe you felt that quiet ache, that sense of searching for meaning after loss. Or maybe you've reached an age where you look back and wonder, was it all just luck? If you've ever asked these questions, you're not alone. This video is for you. Because together we'll uncover why your life is not a random event, but a continuation of intentions, love, choices, and unseen causes stretching far beyond this lifetime. And we'll also discover something empowering, that even though you didn't choose where your river began, you can still shape where it flows next. So stay with me until the end. I promise, by the last minute, you'll see yourself and life in a gentler, deeper way. Before we begin, please take a moment to subscribe to Son.Mindfulness. Here we explore mindfulness, compassion, and awakening through stories that speak to the heart. If this space brings you peace, your support helps us keep sharing that peace with others. And as always, may you be healthy, peaceful, happy, and lucky on your path. Now take a breath. Let's begin the journey together and discover why you were never born by accident. Part 1. You think life is random, but is it really? So many people tell me, everything happens for a reason, yet when I ask, why were you born? They pause. They say, I don't know, I guess I just got lucky. As if life were a kind of cosmic lottery, and their consciousness happened to land in this body like a raindrop falling on a leaf. But I want you to sit back for a moment, take a breath, and ask yourself, have you ever truly believed your life was just a coincidence? Or have there been moments when something inside whispered, this can't just be random? I remember a woman who came to see me once. She was in her 70s, widowed, her children all grown. She said, I don't understand why I'm still here. I've survived cancer twice, I've outlived my friends. Maybe God forgot about me. I smiled and said, perhaps it's not that you were forgotten, but that your conditions to be here are still unfolding. Her eyes softened. Sometimes, that small realization, that nothing is random, can change the way we breathe. You see, more than 2,500 years ago, the Buddha pointed to something quietly revolutionary. Nothing in this world arises independently. Every flower, every storm, every thought comes from conditions. When this exists, that exists. When this ceases, that ceases. It sounds simple, but it changes everything. Because if nothing arises without conditions, then you, this mind, this body, this very moment, are not an accident. You are the meeting point of countless streams. Your parents' choices, the language they spoke, the foods they ate, the time they met, the air they breathed, even the sunlight that nourished the grain that became your bread. Every tiny element converged so that you could be sitting here, listening, right now. Let me tell you a small story. There's a kind of bamboo that, when planted, does not sprout for 5 years. Every day, the farmer waters and waits, seeing nothing above the soil. Then suddenly in the 5th year, it shoots up more than 70 feet in 6 weeks. People call it a miracle. But what they don't see is the 5 years of unseen growth, roots spreading deep, preparing quietly. Our lives are like that. The visible moment, our birth, our presence, is just the part that breaks the surface. Beneath it are years, lifetimes of causes and conditions interwoven. Modern science tells a similar story. You didn't just inherit your parents' DNA, you carry echoes of ancestors who lived centuries ago, traces of famine, trauma, joy, adaptation, woven into your genes. So even biology whispers what Buddhism has long seen, that nothing arises in isolation, not even you. And here's the part that always touches me most. If your existence is the result of countless conditions, then you are also a condition for others. Your words, your actions, even your silences, create ripples in this great web of life. You are not a single drop in the ocean. You are the ocean expressing itself as a drop. Sometimes we feel small or lost or meaningless. But when you begin to see through the eyes of interdependence, something shifts. You realize your breath continues a lineage of breaths that began long before you. Your kindness today may flower in someone you will never meet. And your pain, too, is not just yours, it's the world learning through you. So the next time you wonder, why me? Perhaps the answer isn't about luck or punishment. Perhaps it's this. You were born because the universe was ready for you. Because your particular combination of mind, heart, and breath was needed at this exact point in time. You are not a random event in an indifferent universe. You are a thread in a magnificent tapestry, woven by countless unseen hands. And the beauty is, the moment you awaken to that truth, you begin to weave consciously. You begin to live not as an accident, but as a continuation of wisdom, compassion, and possibility. So tonight, when you close your eyes, remember this. You are not a raindrop fallen by chance. You are rain, returning to where it belongs. Part 2. You think you began at birth, but that's only because you can't remember before it. Most people believe life starts with the first breath and ends with the last. We celebrate birthdays as beginnings and funerals as endings. But the Buddha looked deeper and saw something far more mysterious and far more comforting. Birth, he said, is not the beginning of life. It's the continuation of a story already in motion. It's like walking into a movie halfway through and believing you're the main character who just arrived. But the truth is, the story began long before you, and it will keep unfolding long after. I remember once visiting an elderly man in hospice. He told me, "I don't fear death, but I wish I knew where I came from before all this." I said softly, "You've been coming and going for a very long time, through every smile you've ever given, through every life that touched yours." He smiled faintly and said, "Then I suppose I've never really stopped living, have I?" That, right there, was awakening. You see, in the Buddha's teaching of dependent origination, birth is not the first link, it's the 11th, which means it's already the fruit of countless previous causes, craving, clinging, becoming, and all the subtle movements of mind and intention. Birth is not where you begin, it's where the current becomes visible. Think of a river. If you stand on the bank and see water flowing by, you might say this river starts here. But trace it back, it comes from rain, from clouds, from evaporation, from oceans. And even the oceans came from somewhere. From melting ice, from ancient rains, from cosmic dust. When you truly look, there's no starting point, there's only flow. Your life is that river. What you call me is just one bend in a timeless stream. The faces change, the roles shift, but the current of consciousness keeps moving, shaped by the conditions it meets. Science now tells us that energy never dies, it only transforms. The warmth of your hand, the thoughts in your mind, even the sound of your voice, all are forms of energy passing from one state to another. So when the body ceases, the process doesn't end, it simply changes form. In Buddhism, we call that continuation, not as a soul traveling, but as momentum unfolding. Let me share a simple image. Imagine lighting one candle from another. The new flame is not the same as the old, but without the first, it could not have arisen. There's no fixed thing that travels, only continuity. Birth is like that flame. You are not a repeat of the past, but a continuation shaped by it. Maybe you've met someone for the first time and felt inexplicably, I know this person. Or you visit a place you've never been and it feels like home. Perhaps you have fears that make no sense, like the sea terrifies you, though you've never drowned. Or talents that seem innate. You pick up an instrument and somehow, it feels like remembering, not learning. The Buddha never said you must believe these are from past lives. But he invited you to look at your own experience. Why do tendencies feel older than this lifetime? Because consciousness doesn't arise in a vacuum. It continues, carrying impressions like wind carrying fragrance. And here's something humbling. If your life is a continuation of countless past conditions, then your present choices become the conditions for what continues after you. Every act of kindness is a seed for another birth of compassion somewhere in the future. Every act of understanding plants a future of peace. For someone, maybe even for yourself in another form. So instead of asking, where did I begin? Ask, what am I continuing? When you look into a child's eyes and see that spark of curiosity, when you hear an old song and feel something stir inside, you are touching the same river of life flowing through all beings. You did not begin when you were born. You began when the rain fell that grew the tree that became your cradle, when the love of countless hearts shaped the world that welcomed you. You are not the first note of a song. You are the melody still playing. And when this body grows old and quiet, the music won't stop. It will echo, in new forms, in new lives, in new awakenings. That's why the Buddha didn't see birth and death as two doors, but as one continuous doorway, endlessly opening. So tonight, when you think of your life, don't see it as a short story between two dates carved on a stone. See it as a single verse in a vast poem. One that has been recited for ages and will continue to sing long after you've bowed out. And that, my friend, is the kind of eternity that needs no heaven to feel sacred. Part 3. You think karma is punishment, but it's not. It's not some cosmic judge keeping score, waiting to hand out pain or reward. It's far simpler and far more profound than that. Karma, as the Buddha taught, is intention, volition, the movement of the heart and mind that sets things in motion. Every time you think, speak, or act with intention, you drop a pebble into the lake of life. The ripples travel outward, touching shores you may never see. Many years ago, I met an old man who told me, I must be paying for something terrible in a past life. Everything I touch goes wrong. I looked at him gently and said, what if karma isn't punishment for what you were, but the teacher showing you what you can become? He looked confused at first, then tears filled his eyes. Because suddenly, life stopped being a courtroom and became a classroom. You see, karma is the continuity of cause and effect, not as fate, but as learning. When you act out of anger, anger becomes easier to return to. When you act out of kindness, kindness becomes your resting place. Every action shapes the soil of your future. The Buddha once said, with intention, one acts. With intention, one becomes. Imagine for a moment that your mind is like a garden. Each thought you water grows stronger. If you water resentment every morning, it becomes a tree that shades out joy. If you water patience, it becomes a quiet strength that protects you. Karma isn't someone planting in your garden. It's you, choosing what grows, moment by moment. Modern neuroscience now echoes this truth. Every time you repeat a thought or emotion, you strengthen a neural pathway, like carving a groove in the brain. That's why habits feel powerful, not because they're destiny, but because they've been practiced. The brain changes with repetition. It learns your karma. So when the Buddha said, intention is karma, He was describing not superstition but the psychology of conditioning long before science gave it a name. And here's something we often forget. You are living today inside the conditions of yesterday's intentions, yours and others. And the intentions you set now are shaping tomorrow. But that doesn't mean you're trapped. The moment you see the pattern, you can redirect it. Like a sailor noticing the current, he doesn't curse the sea, he adjusts the sail. I once had a friend, a retired nurse, who carried guilt for decades. She said I was harsh with my patients when I was young. I was impatient, tired, I snapped at them. Now I'm the one in the hospital bed and the nurses are cold to me. Maybe it's my karma. I took her hand and said, perhaps, but maybe life isn't punishing you. It's giving you the one experience your heart still needed to soften completely. She wept, not from sadness, but from recognition. Because karma, when understood, stops being a prison. It becomes a mirror that shows us what's unfinished. If you listen closely, karma is always whispering, what are you practicing right now? When you speak harshly, you're practicing harshness. When you forgive, you're practicing freedom. When you're mindful, you're practicing peace. And what you practice, that is what continues. So no, karma isn't punishment, it's continuity. The momentum of intention shaping the next moment, the next mind, the next life. And the beautiful part? You can begin a new pattern right here. With one breath of awareness, one act of kindness, one refusal to carry anger forward. You might not control the ripples that have already left your hand, but you can choose what you drop into the lake next. That is power, not over others, but over the quality of your own heart. When you begin to see karma this way, compassion naturally arises. You stop blaming others for their suffering, because you see they too are caught in their own ripples. You stop blaming yourself for being imperfect because you see you are still learning how to plant peace instead of pain. So tonight, as you sit quietly, ask yourself, what am I practicing? Not in theory, but in this very breath. Because every breath, every choice, every gentle act is karma becoming. And the future, my friend, is just this moment, continuing. Part 4. You think your mind is yours, but watch it closely and you'll see it moves on its own. We all like to believe we control our thoughts, that the mind is our loyal servant. But tell me, when was the last time you asked your mind to stop thinking and it obeyed? Most of the time it doesn't. It rushes ahead like a wild horse, running from memory to worry, from craving to regret. And yet, we still say, my mind, as if we own it. But if we truly owned it, shouldn't we be able to tell it what to do? Try this with me for a moment. Close your eyes. Don't try to control anything. Just watch. A thought appears. What should I have for dinner? Where did it come from? Did you summon it? No, maybe it came from hunger or habit or just the time of day. Another thought arises. I should call my daughter. Again, spontaneous. Maybe a sound reminded you of her voice. Maybe a bit of longing surfaced. Each thought arises like a wave, then dissolves, replaced by another. This is what the Buddha meant when he said, when this exists, that exists. Thoughts, feelings, impulses, they don't appear from nowhere. They are conditioned, triggered by sensations, memories, hormones, stories, fears, or 1,000 tiny seeds you don't even notice. One time during a retreat, a man told me, whenever I sit in silence, my mind screams, I must be doing meditation wrong. I said, no, you're just hearing what was always there. You finally turned down the noise enough to listen. He laughed, and then he cried. Because for the first time, he realized the chaos wasn't who he was. It was just weather passing through the sky of his awareness. The Buddha used a beautiful image. Mind is like a monkey, leaping from branch to branch. And modern psychology says the same. Our thoughts are automatic responses, neural pathways firing from habit, emotion, and conditioning. Most of what we call thinking is actually remembering. Old impressions dressed up as something new. And yet, there's something extraordinary hidden in this. If thoughts are conditioned, then freedom isn't in controlling them. It's in seeing them clearly. Awareness is the space in which thoughts arise and fade. You are not the thought. You are the awareness that notices it. Let me tell you a story. A woman once said to me, "I keep thinking I'm not good enough. No matter how old I get, that voice stays." I asked, "Whose voice is it?" She paused for a long time, then said softly, "My mother's, maybe." And then she smiled, a sad, free kind of smile. Because she realized the thought was never truly hers. It was just a hand-me-down, passed through generations of fear and longing. The moment she saw it, she stopped believing it. That's the power of seeing conditions. The illusion begins to loosen. When you start to observe your own mind like this, something amazing happens. You become less judgmental. Because you see, even the harshest thoughts aren't chosen, they're conditioned. And if your thoughts are conditioned, so are everyone else's. The man who shouted at you in traffic, maybe his thought arose from years of frustration. The friend who broke your trust, maybe her fear spoke before her heart could. This doesn't excuse the pain, but it explains it. And in understanding, compassion naturally blooms. Science again agrees. Researchers call it priming, how a smell, a song, or even a color can trigger entire emotional patterns. The mind is a web of associations. The Buddha called it sankhara, formations. These formations are always moving, always shaping consciousness. And yet, in the middle of that movement, there is awareness, still, vast, and untouched. You are not your thoughts, my friend. You are the awareness that sees them come and go. Just as the ocean doesn't become a wave, the mind doesn't become the thought. It simply holds it and lets it pass. So when your mind says, "I can't stop worrying," don't fight it. Just whisper gently, "Worry is here." And watch it, like you would watch clouds drifting across the sky. It came from conditions. It will leave when conditions change. This is how we begin to wake up, not by silencing the mind, but by understanding it. Not by forcing peace, but by seeing the causes of our storms. And when you see deeply enough, you realize the mind was never truly yours. It's been borrowed from your parents, your culture, your experiences. But awareness is the home you never lost. So next time a thought arises, don't say, "This is me." Say, "This is happening." Smile at it. Let it pass, because behind every passing thought, there's a quiet presence waiting. And that, my friend, is you. Part 5. You think who you are is fixed, but have you noticed how much you've already changed? When we reach a certain age, we start saying things like, "That's just how I am," or "I can't change now." But look back. Are you the same person you were 10 years ago? Even 1 year ago? The truth is, everything about you has shifted. Your thoughts, your beliefs, even the cells in your body. Every 7 years, scientists say almost every cell in the human body is replaced. So, who is this you that never changes? When the Buddha was asked about the self, he smiled and pointed to the river. He said, "Just as you cannot step into the same river twice, you cannot be the same person twice. Because by the time you step again, both you and the river have moved on." That's what he meant by anatta, no fixed self. It's not that you don't exist. It's that you exist as movement, a living process, not a solid thing. I remember an old friend of mine, a retired teacher. She used to say, "I wish I could be the kind of person who forgives easily, but that's just not me." One day, her granddaughter came home from school crying because someone had bullied her. My friend, without thinking, held her close and said, "We don't know what pain that child is carrying. Let's forgive him." She laughed later and said, "I guess I did become that kind of person." And I said, "You didn't become, you revealed what was already possible." That's how transformation happens. Not through force, but through seeing clearly. You don't have to make yourself change. You just have to stop believing that you can't. The Buddha compared the mind to clay, soft when tended with mindfulness, but hard and brittle when left to dry in ignorance. When you hold awareness, even old habits begin to soften. Like frozen rivers thawing in spring, the personality loosens and flows again. Modern science agrees, the brain is plastic. It changes with experience, with practice, with love. Neuroscientists call it neuroplasticity, but the Buddha called it bhavana, cultivation. Whatever you cultivate, you become. So every time you practice patience, you rewire the brain for peace. Every time you speak with kindness, you reshape the self. You are literally sculpting the person you will wake up as tomorrow. And isn't that extraordinary? You're not a statue carved long ago. You're a river of possibilities, flowing moment to moment. Yes, your past has carved the valley you move through, your childhood, your culture, your wounds. But you're still the water, free to find new paths, to soften new stones. Let me share something personal. Years ago, I used to react sharply when someone criticized me. I told myself it was my temperament. But when I began meditating, I started noticing the moment before the reaction, the tightening in the chest, the heat rising. And in that tiny moment, I saw a choice. Over time, the reaction slowed. It's not that I erased anger, it's that I stopped feeding it. That's when I understood. Change doesn't mean destroying the old self. It means befriending it so deeply that it transforms. So when someone says people never change, smile gently, because they already have. We're changing even as we breathe. Each breath is a tiny death, each exhale a letting go, each inhale a rebirth. You might say, but Tai, I've carried this pain too long. Yes, but even pain moves. It flares, fades, returns, changes color, changes form. And each time you meet it with awareness, instead of resistance, you're rewriting its story. You're not its prisoner, you're its witness. The Buddha didn't ask us to escape the self. He asked us to understand its impermanence, so we could stop clinging and start flowing. Because what hurts is not the change itself, but our refusal to move with it. So next time you look in the mirror and whisper, "I'm too old to change," remember, the mirror is already reflecting someone new. Your eyes have seen more compassion. Your heart has survived more storms. You're not who you were yesterday, and that's a blessing. You are not a stone. You are the river shaping the stone. Slowly, patiently, beautifully. And every moment you live with awareness, you become a little softer, a little clearer, a little freer. That's the quiet miracle of being human. You are always becoming. Not broken, not finished, just endlessly unfolding. Part 6. You think you have no control, but that's never been true. There's a quiet power still resting in your hands, the oars of awareness. You may not choose the river you were born into or how strong the current flows, but you can always choose how you row. So many people tell me, "Thay, it's too late for me. My life has already gone where it will go." But that's only half the truth. Yes, the current of past actions, your karma, your circumstances, is real. You can't pretend it's not there. But even in that current, the Buddha said, there is intention. And intention, my friend, is freedom. Imagine you are sitting in a small boat. The river is moving fast, the result of rains upstream, rocks beneath, winds above. You can't stop the flow, but you can adjust your grip, your rhythm, your direction. You can choose whether to fight the current, surrender to it, or work skillfully with it. That is life. Not total control, not helpless drift, but a dance between condition and choice. I once visited a man who had lost everything, his health, his job, his marriage. He said, "I can't change anything anymore. I'm done." I looked at him and asked, "Can you breathe?" He said, "Of course." I said, "Then you can still choose what kind of breath you take. One filled with anger or one filled with peace." He looked at me for a long time, then began to cry. He realized that even at the bottom of loss, the smallest choice still mattered. The Buddha called this the middle way. Not denial of reality, not surrender to fate, but awareness of the moment where choice is born. You may not change the storm, but you can change how you hold the sail. That's freedom within conditions. Modern psychology calls this response flexibility, the ability to pause between stimulus and reaction. That pause, even if it's one breath long, is where transformation begins. It's where you reclaim authorship of your story. Think of it this way. If the river represents karma, all the causes and effects already set in motion, then the oars represent mindfulness and wisdom. Each mindful decision, not to speak in anger, not to act in fear, not to feed resentment, shifts your direction ever so slightly. Do that often enough, and the entire course of your life begins to bend toward peace. I once asked a group of elders during a retreat, when was the last time you changed something small but meaningful? One woman said, I stopped watching the news first thing in the morning. Now I light a candle and sit in silence for 5 minutes. She smiled. The world didn't change, but I did. That's the essence of this teaching. Freedom doesn't always look like grand victories. Sometimes it's as simple as one breath of peace where there used to be chaos. We cannot rewrite our past, but we can reinterpret it. We can look back not with blame, but with understanding. Even our mistakes were conditions, teachers disguised as pain. The Buddha said, just as a painter covers old colors with new, so too can the wise shape the mind anew. So when you say, I can't change, remember, every moment you are alive, you are changing already. The question is not whether you're changing, but in which direction. You are the boat, the current, and the rower, all at once. You may have been born into a river of hardship, or illness, or loss. You didn't choose that. But you can still choose what kind of person the river meets. You can choose patience instead of resentment, gratitude instead of despair. And those choices ripple outward into the lives of everyone who drifts beside you. The Buddha described 4 kinds of karma: dark, bright, mixed, and the kind that leads to liberation. The last one is born when you act not from craving or fear, but from clear seeing, when your oar moves not to control, but to understand. That is when rowing becomes meditation. So tonight, if you feel powerless, close your eyes and remember this. You may not control the river, but the river cannot move without you. Your awareness is the current's quiet heart. Every mindful stroke, every compassionate thought, every pause before reacting is how you guide yourself home. And perhaps that's all freedom ever was, not escaping the flow, but learning to move with it, gracefully, wisely, lovingly. Because even when life carries you faster than you can steer, you still hold the oars. And that, my friend, is enough. Part 7. You think the present is just passing time. But this moment is not a bridge, it's the seed itself. We live as if now were only a doorway between past and future. We rush through it, eyes fixed on what's next or what's gone. But the Buddha saw something different. He saw that this very moment is the ground where all futures are planted. The past is gone, the future hasn't arrived, yet both are being shaped right here, in the soil of the present. I remember once visiting a quiet nursing home in California. An old woman sat by the window staring at the garden. She said, "Every day feels the same, Thay, just waiting for what I don't even know." I smiled and said, "Then maybe today, instead of waiting, you can water something." She laughed softly. "There's nothing left to water." I pointed to her heart. "There's always one garden left." She looked away, tears shining. The next day, she asked the nurses to move her chair closer to the garden so she could talk to the flowers. And I thought, that's it. That's the miracle of the present moment. The Buddha once said, "Mind precedes all things." If with an impure mind one speaks or acts, suffering follows. But if with a pure mind one speaks or acts, happiness follows like a shadow that never leaves. He didn't say perfect mind, he said pure, meaning clear, awake, kind. And every moment, we have the chance to clear the mind again, to begin again. Think about how much time we spend replaying yesterday, the things we said, the things we lost, the things we regret, and how much energy we pour into tomorrow, planning, fixing, worrying. Meanwhile, the only place we can plant anything real is right here. Modern science agrees. Studies show that when you practice mindfulness, the brain rewires itself, building resilience, compassion, and calm. Every conscious breath is not just relaxation. It's rewiring your being. It's literally changing the chemistry of who you are becoming. So when you breathe with awareness, you're not passing time, you're shaping time. Imagine your life like a field. Every thought is a seed. Every word is a drop of water. Every action is sunlight or shadow. What you repeat becomes your harvest. If you feed resentment, it will bloom again and again. If you nurture gratitude, it will spread quietly through your days like wildflowers. I once asked an old friend, a Vietnam veteran, "What brings you peace after everything you've seen?" He said, "One breath at a time. When I was young, I thought peace was a place I'd find someday. Now I know it's the breath I'm taking right now." That's the wisdom of age, when you finally realize that waiting for peace is what keeps you from it. Sometimes people ask me, Thoy, how can I change the future? And I tell them, by touching this moment fully. Because the future is not waiting somewhere ahead. It's being born now, from every thought you nurture, every word you speak, every way you hold this breath. You might not see the results immediately, but seeds grow quietly. The kind word you speak today might soften someone years from now. The forgiveness you offer yourself tonight might echo in another lifetime. And the awareness you cultivate right now, even for one breath, becomes the foundation of awakening. So know the present isn't just passing, it's alive. It's pregnant with becoming. It's where the river of your past meets the ocean of your possibility. This is where karma turns into choice, where intention becomes destiny. Sometimes when I sit at night listening to the crickets outside the temple, I remember my teacher's words. Every thought you feed is a prayer to the universe. Choose them wisely. That line has stayed with me for decades, because it reminds me that life is not waiting to happen. It's happening here, in this heartbeat, in this breath. So tonight, when you sit quietly, ask yourself, what am I planting right now? Am I watering fear or understanding? Am I feeding resentment or forgiveness? Am I rushing through the moment, or am I willing to touch it deeply as it is? Because this breath, this one, is the thread that weaves the next. And if you breathe it with awareness, compassion, and peace, then the next breath, the next day, even the next life, will carry that fragrance. You were not born by accident. You were born as part of a vast web of causes, but what you weave next, that's up to you. So don't rush this moment. It's not the space between your life's chapters. It is the story being written. And every time you return to the present, you pick up the pen again. Breathe deeply, my friend. You are home. Conclusion. You've walked with me through 7 truths, 7 quiet doorways into seeing life differently. We began with the question, was your life an accident? And maybe somewhere along the way, your heart whispered no, it never was. You saw that nothing in this world happens without conditions. You learned that birth isn't a beginning, it's a continuation. That karma isn't punishment, it's the ripple of intention. That thoughts arise from causes, not from ownership. That you are never fixed, you're a river, always changing. That even when life feels out of control, you still hold the oars. And that this moment, this single breath, is where you plant your next becoming. Take a breath now. Feel it. This breath is your bridge between what was and what can still be. You were never random. You were never alone. You are a thread in a vast tapestry of causes, and every gentle act you make continues that beauty forward. Do you feel that? That quiet gratitude that comes when you see life clearly. Maybe it's whispering right now, I understand a little more. Be proud of that. You've just looked deeply into truths many spend a lifetime avoiding. That takes courage. That takes awareness. And I'm deeply grateful that you stayed until now. What part of this journey touched you most? Was there a moment that made you stop and breathe? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share them in the comments below. Because this channel, Son.Mindfulness, isn't just about teachings, it's about connection. It's about remembering, together, that awakening is not something far away. It's happening, right here, in ordinary lives like ours. If these reflections touched your heart, please subscribe, follow, and share this message with someone who needs a moment of peace. Maybe your sharing will be the condition that awakens another heart. And before you go, take one more breath. Feel how alive it is. That breath is the universe continuing through you. So may you walk gently, may you breathe deeply, may you live awake. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. From my heart to yours, may you always be healthy, peaceful, and lucky on your path. With gratitude, Son.Mindfulness.